Okay, so today's to start making our clay dogs and cats. The first step is to write our name on a bag and have a little board ready. And you're going to be working on top of one of these mats so that the clay doesn't stick to it. When you get your piece of clay, you want to break it in half. And for the first part, you want to make it into a nice ball. You can roll it around like this. You can roll it around on the table. And once you have it into a nice ball, you're going to flatten it and make it about the shape of a cookie. You don't want it super thin, but you don't want it super thick either. So you want to kind of flatten it out. If you want to use something to cut a shape around it, that's fine. But just a little circle is fine. You can use a tiny bit of the watery clay in here called slip if you need to smooth out any cracks, if you have some. But you don't want to get this clay super wet. Then you want to add some kind of a texture to your base. You can use one of these texture rollers. You can use one of these texture plates. I think I'm going to use this roller, and I'm just going to roll it right across a few times. And then I have my base. For the next part, you're going to take your other piece of clay, and you're going to try and think about, are you making 2 animals on here, 1 animal? What are you going to do? But no matter what you're making, a dog or a cat, you can start the same way. If you roll a small piece into kind of a little cylinder, like this, and then if you take your knife and cut a slit in one end and turn it around and a slit in the other end, I can then make these into the 4 legs and the body. So I can pinch these out a little bit. And when you're working with this clay, you just want to pinch things gently. Remember, you don't want any one part to be too thin. A good rule of thumb is like you don't want much to be thinner than your pinky, or it runs the risk of cracking. So once you have those 4 legs, you can think about how you're going to want your dog or your cat to be sitting. Are you wanting them to, you can bend them down like this so that he's standing on all 4 legs. You can have him sit down like this. You could have him on his back with his legs in the air. It's really up to you. So you can take a little bit of time to do that. And you want to take the time to smooth this out really well. Then, if you have time for the head, you may or may not, you can take another piece of clay, and I think it helps to roll it into kind of an egg shape, a ball, and then a little thinner. And then if you pinch like this for a dog, this is a great way to make that snout that comes out. You can use a knife to make his mouth go in. You can pinch up the nose a little bit. You can add a nose. If I wanted to have a nose that was a little bit bigger, I could add a nose. Now, one really important thing when you are working with clay like this is that you don't just stick something on. So even though I stick that nose on and it seems to stay right now, as this clay dries, it will shrink a tiny bit, and that nose runs the risk of popping right off. So you want to do what's called scoring and slipping, and a great tool for that is a toothbrush. These toothbrushes were not used on anyone's teeth, but you can scratch up the surface a little bit, put a little of this slip clay on there, and do that on both parts, and then really squish it on. It helps to blend it together a little bit so it stays. You could add eyes to this, but you could poke the eyes in like this if you wanted to, or you could add the eyes with little balls like I did the nose. You can add some ears. You could pinch the ears out. Again, you don't want them too long and skinny, or else they might crack. You can also add ears on by scoring and slipping. You can kind of experiment with how you want your dog's face or your cat's face. And then you can add it onto your clay. Now, when I go to add that on, same thing. I really need to score and slip, so I'm going to rough it up with my toothbrush. I'm going to add a little of this gooey slip clay to there. Same thing with my other piece. This really helps to attach your pieces really well. Then once you've got that attached, you want to blend the clay together. Now, if I'm ready to attach it to my base, you may or may not have time to do this part today. You want to, same thing, score and slip the bottom of the feet to attach them to the base. You could also add a tail. If you have a long tail, like if you're like a cat's tail or a dog with a longer tail, you don't want to make it too thin. So a good way to do it is to make a coil, which is like a snake. Roll out a coil. And it's a great idea to add it, to attach it in two places. So I'm going to make kind of a flat end. I'm going to score it up and add some slip. And then I'm going to blend it together. See how I can take my finger and blend the tail on there. And then instead of having the tail stick straight out like that, that's going to be very, very fragile. I might want to make it bend and attach again, like that. Or I could make it a little bit shorter of a tail. You can do it however you like. But you want to just make sure that you really, really attach things super well. So now I could have my dog, I could attach him like this. I could have one leg up in the air even. If I have time, I could add a few details. And once that's all finished, the last step will be to score and slip the bottom of the feet. Again, you can rough it up with your toothbrush and attach it, figure out where you want to attach it onto your base. And then it's really important that you blend a little bit of clay from your foot onto your base, and that will really attach it well. And after that, if you want to add a little bowl, a little bone, any kind of little details, that's a really fun way to do it. I hope you have fun.